Well, hello, KMMA friends, tribe, family, students. Coming to you here today at Carmel Martial Arts. And I was going to talk to you about what I wrote about this morning, which was about my grandson Triton's first swim lesson at Watermelon Swim. I was so impressed with him, his progress, and his instructor, Miss Vanessa. And I wrote a little bit on that. I was going to talk on it this morning, and I probably will later in the week. But instead, what happened was some parents came in here and, just happened to come in right before I started. And I was able to talk to them. And I think there was such important lessons learned from that conversation that I'm going to share that instead. Because what happened is, honestly, they have a 3-year-old, and the 3-year-old, of course, is not 100% um, in the program, right? Like as 3-year-olds are, they're still working on their focus a little bit, right? But through the conversation, several things got uncovered, and the victory, by the way, was that at the end of it, while honestly, I think they walked in wondering if they were going to continue this or not. Like maybe they thought that maybe she's not really ready yet. The cool thing is that by the end of the discussion, we decided we're gonna watch it a little bit more, and then make a decision. And of course, if it turns out that she does need a little more time, then we'll pause the program, and they'll come back when she is ready. But so that was probably part of the pressure right there, was that discussion got off. But here's the really interesting things that I wanted to make sure I shared. Number one, they actually just reinforced the things that I teach my instructors: the importance of the one-on-one attention for every single child wherever they're at, the empowerment and the edification and the attention for the individual student. And that was so important. Number two, we were able to talk about, because we were able to talk about the way that I teach my instructors to teach, which is that, we know that energy flows where focus goes. So my instructors are taught to give more attention to positive behavior and use positive reinforcement of positive behavior to get more positive behavior, instead of putting excessive attention on negative behavior. Like when the behavior is not what we want, we'll try to ignore it. And then if we're going to correct it, our first attempt at correcting it, honestly, will be to correct it by praising the person next to the child that's doing it right. Right. So we get to talk some about that, about positive psychology and the behavior modification in that way. But then the part that was the most interesting of all was the father said, he goes, really, I mean, more than anything, I just wanted to make sure. I sit there sometimes anxious. He goes, I struggle with anxiety, and I sit there wondering, is my child detracting from the experience? And I thought that was so important, right? Like, I can't wait to share that with my instructors in training later today, right? Because the real important overarching lesson there is that it's not always what we think. And what I mean is, somebody else's behavior in any given situation does not always mean what we think. So, for example, I've taught the lesson before my instructor training from the perspective of sometimes a child who looks like they're disinterested or even belligerent may just lack confidence, and they're really nervous. They're not sure if they're doing it good enough, if they can do it, and it can be expressed in a way that can totally be perceived as something else. And I think it's going to be a great lesson for them, that it's the same even with parents sometimes, right? Like maybe one of my instructors could be looking and being like, oh, and that, the instructor is now getting nervous, thinking, oh, that guy's really dissatisfied with the way I'm handling the situation. And look, I'm not saying maybe there's not some element of that as well. And then of course you just correct it. But there could also be the element of, I wonder if they're getting frustrated with my child. I wonder if we should be here. And look, if those parents and I end up agreeing, you know what, let's take 6 months and let her grow up a little more and come on back in and try it again. If we decide to do that, and we do that, and it's no harm, no foul. But I sure would have hated for them to leave thinking that, somehow we, somehow we're dissatisfied with them. like leaving thinking that, oh, this we're detracting from this thing, all right? So what do we know? What we know is this is why communication is so important. And very often, sometimes communications can even be what it's a great book on the subject called Crucial Conversations, right? Where you have to have a less than comfortable at first conversation, but then at the end of the conversation, because you've just both openly, transparently spoken through the issues, solution oriented rather than problem oriented, then you have this awesome outcome on the other side. In fact, the father, as he left, it was great. He's like, "Man, you guys are great." He goes, uh, "You're way cooler than I gave you credit for." And that was awesome. But what's going to be more awesome is watching that little girl grow into a empowered, powerful black belt leader one day. Because I was talking to my son Sensei Winston the other day, and we were talking about 3-year-olds. There was a discussion about the particular challenges of training a 3-year-old, and and he said, well, why do we even take them? And I said, you were 3 when you began, which of course was an awakening for him, right? The other principle there is, we are in the mission and purpose, the passion, the ikigai of giving people what they need exactly where they're at. Rather it's a 3-year-old beginner, or rather it's a seasoned senior black belt leader, master even. There's nothing more edifying for me and for my team than being able to sow positively into each of them wherever they're at. All right, team, family, tribe. This is Shihan Steve